Joining me now is a man who will fight at Battlefield Fight League 74. He was originally slated to face Ali Wasuk. That much got scrapped and last minute replacement. He'll take on Oguzhan Yalcin in a matchup on the main card at BFL 74 on UFC Fight Pass. He is Mitch Strazzella. Mitch, thanks for joining me today, man.
Thanks, brother.
Now, before we get into that matchup, let's go back. I obviously, for people that I get on the show or interview, that maybe the mainstream people or the people that are watching this for the first time don't know about. How'd you get into combat sports growing up? Were you into other sports? Talk about your childhood and whatnot coming up to where you're at today.
Yeah, so so growing up, I played quite a few sports. But my dad actually put me in Taekwondo when I was about 9, and I didn't like it. I should have stuck it out, but I didn't like it. I stayed for about, I want to say about 2 years, over 2 years. And then I joined other sports. I played I played soccer, I played lacrosse. I stuck that out for a while. I played football, concussion first game. That didn't go so well. I played basketball, tried, attempted, and yeah, baseball. I just never played hockey. So, and then what happened was me and my dad we always watched the UFC like on Spike, right? And so, you know, I ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant when I was 15, and as like an outlet, basically, I had MMA. I had a gym. I joined Zuma
Yeah.
in Victoria, BC. That was my first gym. And I don't know if you remember Alexi
Yeah. Yeah.
Arjurian.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So he threw me a pair of shorts and he was like, like you love MMA, come train. So, I think it was like my first day I went in because I went to high school with him and some other guys. And I went in the ring and just got my ass whooped by my buddy, by big dude, my friend Justin at the time. And I remember like a couple of people were watching because I split my nose open and everything, and but I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like I kept going. I came back the next day. You know what I mean? I got a membership, and yeah, that's basically the gist of it. And then about probably a year, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to fight.
Going back to that, obviously you said the outlet. Your child, how's that all
Mhm.
play into things right now?
Yeah, well, it's a crazy relationship. I was 15,
Yeah.
I was in grade 10 when I found out about the pregnancy, like at the beginning of grade 10. So, um, grade 10 was rough.
I
And
bet.
then grade 11, she was born just before school started. So, start of grade 11, I have a child.
Yeah.
And and yeah, she doesn't live in Victoria, so she moved with her mom when they were really young. So she has you know, a separate life, but we still keep in contact. She comes here. It's not the relationship that I want, but it is what it is for now. So
Definitely. So long as you're able to be
yeah.
a part of it, and I mean, you say it's not the way you want it to be, but maybe
Yeah,
eventually it will be.
exactly. And yeah, as for the outlet, I was like insanely stressed, like grade
I
10,
bet.
insanely stressed. But I had MMA, and
Were you able to
I,
finish high school?
I did sort
Good.
of just.
Yeah.
I went, I did the graduation. I threw the hat up in the air.
Yeah.
There, I granted. There we go.
So you said Zuma was your first club. You then moved to
Mhm.
Island Top Team, correct? You were at
So, Island MMA. So I
Island
was with,
MMA. Yeah.
yeah. So I was with Zuma for about over 6 years. Dustin Joinson was there.
Yeah.
Tyler Dolby, Sarah Kaufman, obviously. It was a pretty good pro team, but I never fought for them. So after a while, it was kind of frustrating. So I went to Island MMA with Jason Height and Stan Federek, and then within 6 months, I had my first kickboxing fight.
Nice. And you also train. That's not your only gym right now, correct? You're training with CFA. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
TFA,
Yeah,
TFA.
TFA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're the fitness academy. So yeah, you could say I'm a gym hopper, I guess, but I've really
And on the
only
mainland right now too. So
yeah, I'm in Vancouver, pretty much finishing up my camp. So Victoria's small. Like there's the main gyms would I would say. I mean, the Van Isles is coming up as a great jiu-jitsu gym, but
yep,
for MMA at the time, Zuma, okay, and then Island MMA, which is a really good stand-up gym, and then TFA too, because Dustin Joinson's there now, and so those are the MMA gyms.
makes sense. Now your
Yeah,
amateur career, obviously, it didn't. You were 3-2, I believe, something like that, or
three and three.
3-3. You made the
Yeah,
jump to pro, and now you're 2-0. Do you feel
yeah.
like your amateur record, you sort of got overlooked a little bit? I know me personally, I always saw the skill in you, but you
Mhm.
always took on the most difficult opponents. Like you didn't
Yeah,
take, there was no way Battlefield gave you a slouch. And it seems to be the
yeah.
case, the same thing with your pro career. You know, you go against JR in your first match.
Mhm.
Again, it was a battle where people thought, okay, it could go either way. You looked fucking amazing in that fight, like probably the
Yeah,
best Mitch
yeah,
we've ever seen.
for sure.
And then the second fight, you took on Maddie and finished that one in the first round in a grueling
Yeah.
matchup against him. This one you were supposed to take on Ali, who has great cage wrestling. Now you're up against another wrestler. You're not fed any easy fights. Is this the way you like it?
Yeah, well, it's what they offer. So, it's funny. Like I was 2-0 in my amateur for MMA, and then they booked me a title fight with Ali, and he was my first loss. And so, that it was a split decision. So it was like, okay, that's okay. Like, and we knew Ali was good. He was like 6-3 at the time. So
Yeah.
okay. And then they came back and offered me another title fight, and it was Geo, and it was like, fuck, what do you do? Do you say no? Like, no, we're gonna, tough fight, but we're gonna take it. And then so like all my losses are title fights, they're still
Yeah.
losses, but it says something, they were title fights, So I had two losses back to back, and then I had a fight with Walter Barrios, who Walter was pretty good. And then I got back on track, and then it was like boom, BFL right away. Hey, title fight you in Droop, and it's like okay, yeah, let's do it. So and like I remember my first fight with Ali. It's my third MMA fight. They were already asking me like, so when are you gonna go pro? Like I
Yeah.
remember doing like, so you're gonna win this and go pro, and it was like, well, yeah, like of course I would love to, get paid and you know, of course, but obviously that didn't happen, and it was kind of like let's just win the fight and kind of go from there, and then you see things in your performance, and it's like okay, not pro yet. Let's just you know
For sure.
go
Do you
with
feel
it.
like you were overlooked in a lot of these fights?
Yeah, because I think
Not
they
even I don't even mean from your opponent's standpoint. I mean from a fan and promotional and opponent overall.
yeah, a little bit maybe. Only because like you know I think when I first came to BFL, like I fought Josh Lamb, and from what I remember, it was like Josh is supposed to be the next guy because he had a win when he was like really young, when he was like 16, 17. So I was thinking I'm just the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
I don't care, right? So I don't know. That's kind of how I've always viewed it. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna go in and we're gonna fight their guy and fucking whatever. It didn't matter because at the end of the day, it was still high level fights. So
For sure.
in an amateur, it was like, you know, once you go pro, then there's no going back. But if you're gonna lose or you're gonna make mistakes, you can do it in your amateur career. And I really think everyone just thought like, oh, he's a striker. He comes from, Island MMA, which is a good striking gym. So, well, you just got to take this guy down. But I mean, I had a lot of experience at Zuma on the ground, which nobody really thinks about or knows. So yeah, I did feel overlooked in that regard as like a martial artist. Like
Yeah, for
they,
sure. And especially in your pro debut, I mean, against JR, you
Mhm.
proved that your cage wrestling and your transitions from the distance into the cage wrestling, that
Mhm.
you weren't just striking, you were striking to set up that grappling exchange, which proved to
Well,
be very, very, very difficult for him to deal with.
they also said like he's just a boxer because I have the highest strike count or whatever the fuck in
Yeah.
BFL. Yeah, dude, like I used my hands a lot, and then it was like for the JR fight, I kicked him a lot. I threw like head kicks and then low kicks, and I guess that caught people off guard. But it was like, man, like I know how to fucking throw a kick. I
Yeah.
know how to do a double leg. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I've been doing this a long time, right? I've never gotten to show it in my matchups, like that didn't happen, but I feel confident with that. It's been a long time of work, so I'm not just a fucking boxer, not even close.
Definitely. Now let's get into this matchup. You were obviously supposed to face Ali. It seems like it's a
Mhm.
matchup that you would still like to have and sort of avenge in the
Mhm.
future if all goes well. You're facing Yalcin in this fight, who is arguably a better wrestler than Ali, but didn't get to showcase that in their fight. Um, are you at all worried about his wrestling capabilities? Do you feel like you'll be on your back, able to pop back up? I'm guessing a lot of this camp is takedown defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same matchup with Ali, but I do think like Ali has a little more skill and he's a little more polished. So it was like I'm prepping for that type of grueling fight anyways. So I think like Yeltsin, it's nothing really changes, honestly. Yeah, like he's a good wrestler. Like obviously, I don't want to be on my back. I'm prepared to be on my back, and
Yeah,
it's an MMA fight. Like it never goes the way you think it's gonna
of
go. I'll
course.
tell you that. It never ever goes that like everyone thought me and Maddie would be on the feet, stand, and it was like that fight was on the ground. I finished him on the ground,
Yeah.
right? So like that's a perfect example with Yeltsin. Yeah, he wants to go to the ground. I'm gonna do my damnedest to not go to the ground, but I mean, I really feel like even if we do, I mean, I think I've been doing this longer. I have been doing it longer. He has experience in wrestling. I have
Hmm.
experience in MMA. I'm not, I'm not fucked like on my back, like I'm not like a fish out of water. I know what to do. And, like what happens if I get on top of him? Like, does anyone ever think of that? Like,
Well, that's what Ali did, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he looked like a little overwhelmed in that fight, like right away. And it makes sense because it's kind of he's fighting
it's a fish out of
himself.
water.
Yeah, well, and he's fighting a guy that is the same but a little more well-rounded. Ali's more well-rounded.
Yeah.
So if you can't get the takedown, you know.
I'll say something that I heard in the crowd as well when not in the Ali fight, but in the fight against, let me look it up. In his second victory, pro victory against Wesley Bowman, he earned the decision in that fight. I heard the crowd say, you know what, he dictated the wrestling, but he lacked the killer instinct. I don't know if you
Yeah,
watched that fight. He had him down in a lot of places where it looked
he
like he
did.
should have been able to just
Yeah,
like
unload.
pound him out and unload, and he didn't do it. So
Yeah.
that's got to give you some peace of mind a little bit to think that maybe I'll have a little bit of space. I mean, obviously he could have changed from that fight, but the
Mhm.
killer instinct wasn't there in that fight. I don't know. Did you happen to watch that fight?
I believe that I did. I think was that on the same card as me?
It
Didn't
might
we
have
fight
been.
him? Same card. Yeah, he just held the guy. It's tough when if a guy's giving you no space and not even posturing to damage. I mean, yeah, it's effective, but it's boring as shit, and it's not really fighting. It's just very one-dimensional wrestling. I don't think there's any like submission threats, or there's definitely not brutal ground and pound. Yeah, I think that just speaks as like maybe his martial artist skill set. Like we said, like he's a good wrestler, a good top guy, but in terms of like um striking to transition to and then also killer instinct of just fucking going. Maybe he lacks a little bit of that. I'm sure he's training to like try and put me away, you know what I mean? But
Yep.
I really do believe like what wins me this fight is I'm fucking tougher. That's what wins me this fight. So you can be a great wrestler, like that's all great, man. Like, and you can take me down. You can take me down three times, four times, five times. 15 minutes is a long time to be in there with me. It's a long freaking time. So, it's going to be tough. And I'm like, if one way or another, I'm leaving with a piece of him. So, like I said, my way to victory is, I mean, I believe I'm a better martial artist, but I'm tougher, and that's what's going to win me the fight.
Makes sense. Do you think a victory over this guy gets you a title shot? Is that the goal with this one?
It could, maybe. I think there's other, like Ali definitely would catapult me. Um, so I don't know. I'm open to anything, but I would think that me and Ali will get rebooked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's good, man. Like I said, it's high level fights. So just keep fighting, get paid, and if I got to get to 4-0 and then fight for a title, cool.
Makes
If they
sense.
want to if they want to do me and Siri, which is a really cool fight, then then we negotiate.
Were you at all worried that that you wouldn't even make this card when you heard Ali had to pull out?
For sure. Yeah. I was in Van. I was on my way to Vancouver. I literally had hopped on the ferry and got the text, oh, bro, Ali's out. And it was like, I was just fucking flabbergasted. Like, I can't. What the fuck? Like, all
Yeah.
the money that I spent, the money that I got. And it's like, there was still like 4 weeks, like just under 4 weeks. So it was like, man, what, like, you can't get anyone. Like, there's
Yeah.
got like, there has to be there's got to be a 35 or like there's got to be something we can do. We talked about, maybe December. Yeah, wait till December 1st, but I really just, like I said, it's the money, it's the sponsorships, it's the time put in. Like, we have to compete. So I am glad Yeltsin took it because that's ballsy, right? I just
100%.
think, I think he thinks like that he's just straight up better and he's going to take me down and beat me. And so I think that's to his downfall. But hey, man, we got the fight. Cool. Like, yeah, think that.
Definitely. Now, before I let you go, you said you've been training, you're finishing up your camp on the mainland. Just tell me about
Yeah,
where you've been training over here because you talked all about the island. Let's hear what you're doing on the
yeah,
mainland.
it's great, man. There's so much going on in the scene of MMA. I haven't been to Tristan's yet because I trained with Tristan a lot. He would always come down, but I've been going to Universal, so with Dahan and like Cole Smith, like all those guys. There's a big group kind of like on the Saturdays that we're getting a nice thing going. I was just with Taylor Christopher at CQ MMA, like that's great working with him. And then I'm also going to SFU with
Nice.
my buddy Jacob Torres. He's awesome. He's going to corner me for this one, and yeah, I mean that's freaking amazing. Going to wrestle with those guys is like, I mean, it's another level. Like you can't,
Yeah.
no, nobody wrestles like these people, right? So mixing all of that in and kind of like, peaking at the right time. I think this is it's perfect.
Would you say it's your best camp ever?
Well, I really think it's weird because the Glenn fight I think was my best camp ever, but different, man. Every camp's been different.
Yeah.
There was still like COVID stuff going on with
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
Glenn camp. So, dude, I would just like I just did my own thing almost like I would be like, well, if there's no class, I'm running. You know what I mean? So I would just run and sprint and freaking. So this one has been like more. especially these last few weeks, like a little more strategic with
Hmm.
in terms of like MMA. So
Do you set that up?
now, sorry,
Do you set that up, or do you have like, does your coach set up your training standpoint?
I set it up.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I set it up. So I just thought I need to do this. So I think like it's almost like working smarter, not harder, but I'm
Hmm.
still working really hard. So, I always think about that one. What's the hardest camp? Like then I think back to like my first like boxing fight where it was like, dude, I hated life. Like
Yeah.
I hated it. I hated it. I hated it, man. Like running with like the sled
Oh
carrying.
yeah.
My coach would get me to run with the sled, and it was the shittiest workout ever. And like I really debated on like, do I even want to do this? You know what I mean? And then I go in and I smoke the guy, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's worth it. So every camp's different, is my point. But this one, I feel like strategically and like MMA, yes, this is becoming one of my best.
Nice. Now, you spoke about sponsors. I don't want to put you on the spot, but before I let you go, shout out those sponsors. Let people know where they can find you on social media if they want to keep up with your training camp and whatnot before the 12th of October. Mitch, the floor is yours,
Oh,
man.
man. Yeah, so there's dude, I'm still like getting sponsors. So I apologize if I can't remember the name. So this is why you need to follow me because I'll be making posts shouting them out. There's Carmana door design, they're amazing. There's Tomahawk tree cutting services, awesome. Poop Scoop, dude, they clean your poop like your dog's poop. It doesn't get any better than that. There is my buddy Warren. He's a real estate agent. I can't freaking remember the name of his real estate agency, but um, the gyms that have helped me out, Universal, Cole Smith, Coquitlam Martial Arts, they're really helping me right now. SFU, so everyone from SFU, and follow me. That way I can make an official shout out to my sponsors. I still need to do that.
Where can they follow you?
Mitch Strazzella, Instagram. That's it.
Perfect. Before I let you go, I'll ask you one more thing. In a perfect world, crystal globe, you say nothing ever goes to plan, but in a perfect world, how do you vision this one going?
Yeah. Second round finish.
There you have it. Mitch Strazzella fights Battlefield Fight League 74, October 12th. Check it out on UFC Fight Pass.
Thanks, G.